the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Hello and welcome to HBR Talk 337, still more on Biden, also technical difficulties with the Badgers. And sorry guys, I literally looked through everything I could and identified things that I thought were the reason that OBS crashed, but didn't change anything when I fixed them. So I don't know what happened. There isn't a valid explanation that I can come up with for exactly why OBS did what OBS did. Nothing makes sense. I am confoozled. So there you go. Now you have technical difficulties with the confoozled Badgers. But be that as it may, we are. Let's see. I think I have the the window minimized so you can't see it. We are going further into the depths of the Biden Mafia, the Mafia, with more information, and it's still not showing in the screen. It was before, but I did have to restart OBS, so let's see if I can just fix this really quick. It thinks the window is a whole new window, and it can't see it. Alright. Sorry, more fun. Let's see. It's not a new window, it's the same damn window we looked at last week. What the fuck? Okay. I wish somebody would do a show on a report on my laptop. Like, I want to see them try to explain all the fucking technical difficulties. And this is where we put the device to cause OBS to crash, but then nothing in the task manager or the local applications or will demonstrate why it's crashing. The user will have no idea. She will be utterly confused.
I think you gave it your motherfucker gene.
Yeah, well, you know, I am one dysfunctional motherfucker. Not mentally, just physically. Like, I lucked out. Well, a lot of women got the whole, you know, never gonna grow up, never able to do things on their own. I did get one mental thing. I worked way too much. But I not as much as my dad. Like, kind of learned a little bit from him, so I sleep sometimes. But in any case, yeah, we have been going over. This is the page I think we stopped on. I don't think we went over this next guy here, which I will drag over to if. Now I know why that's happening. I deprioritized Chrome as a service. I'm gonna have to fix that. I had it doing OBS in real time. So let's see here. I'm sure I can find Chrome in my list of services, because I found it before. Therefore, it shouldn't be difficult to find it again. Unless I'm an idiot. Yeah, this is good. No. Well, we may be seeing some slow movement here for a little bit, because I'm not going to continue dealing with this shit if I don't have to. So, let's see here. We'll set Chrome back to normal. There it is. I found it. I was looking in the wrong place. It's, usually I don't mess around with the priority level as the task manager, but if you ever feel like you need to do that because something is running too slow, it's under details, and I keep looking under services, and I think maybe under an old system it was under services, but there we go. Now my processor is going nuts and my fan is trying to cool it off, so obviously it's working. But let's take a look at this individual here. So this is George. I believe this is pronounced Messiers, but it might be Messiers. Probably Messiers, and I'm wrong. And I don't believe we talked about him last week. But there's just a couple of guys left here to talk about either way. So if we did talk about him last week, I'm sorry. But let me see if it... Yeah, this isn't the guy that went to school with at the same time as Beau Biden. But this is a guy who goes back decades with... Yes, it is. Okay, we talked about this guy. So we will go to the next page. That's the guy that we talked about because he went way back. So we are actually on part of the reason that I referred to the Biden family as the Mafia. So this is going to be interesting. And I'm, again, gonna plead... I read about this stuff. I don't listen to it on the news, so I don't hear other people pronounce these names very often, if at all, and this is one of them. To me, this looks like it's Bulger, Jimmy Bulger. So if anybody's familiar with Whitey Bulger, you kind of know why this is significant, right? But if we need to, we'll go into who... Like it kind of briefly says. In the preceding section, we compared the Biden political syndicate to a mafia. That comparison was certainly not hyperbole. From the legendary white-collar crime boss John Galanis to Boston's Winter Hill Gang, Hunter's direct and indirect connections with mobsters runs the gamut. Right, so it's not just that they are like a mafia. They are connected. In fact, the nephew of the infamous leader of the Winter Hill Gang, Whitey Bulger, was one of Hunter's key business partners. You just have to pause there for a minute, okay? I want you to remember who Joe Biden is. Not just that he's the president of the United States right now. We're going to go back, and I'm going to say this again. I've said this a bunch of times, but we're going to go back, and I'm going to say it again. Right? Joe Biden started out as a prosecutor, right? His whole life was about being a top cop. Prosecutors are top cops. You have the police that do the arresting and the investigation and everything, but the prosecuting attorney's job is to prosecute the individual after the cops have arrested them with intent to get them jailed for their crimes. The prosecutor's job is to put pressure, get pleas of guilty by plea bargaining, or persuade a jury that this person has done wrong, violated the laws, and belongs in jail. So this is the kind of person that a prosecutor would go after, right? And his whole time in the Senate, his shtick was being a top cop, supporting law enforcement, getting laws passed that increased the number of police on the street, that increased the activity of the police on the street, that resulted, like, he's the guy that said throw him up against the wall and frisk him. That was Joe Biden. Throw him up against the wall and frisk him, Biden. All the people that supported this man, who also supported defund the police, Joe Biden was the man who wrote the bill that increased police funding. Right?
Idiots.
And the son that he just pardoned was a it seems like he was the mafia's village idiot. So for people who do not have a lot of familiarity with this, Whitey Bulger was convicted of murdering at least 11 people. He's considered a serial killer, although, I mean, mobsters, all mobsters that are enforcers of any type would be considered that. Like, they're going to have a style, they're going to have a method of operations, right? And they're going to have a standard set of reasons why they kill. If that kind of stuff is what qualifies you as being a serial killer, being an active enforcer in the mafia makes you a serial killer. Sorry. There's kind of a lot of overlap there, right? Jimmy Bulger sat on the board of BHR, Burisma with Hunter. BHR with state. Oh no, that's not the right one. BHR is different. Of state-backed Chinese investment fund that was registered just 12 days before Hunter joined his father on Air Force 2 for a visit to China in December 2013. So in preparation for this trip, they created a company and had
Jesus Christ.
the nephew of a mob enforcer, by the way, who was murdered in prison. It's kind of what happens on the board. Jimmy's firm, Thornton Group LLC, is deeply embedded with CCP cells in the United States and abroad. Bulger and Hunter can be seen relaxing with, with Xi Guliang, who called Hunter a close friend. Incredibly, in spite of the serial killing, Jimmy declared that Whitey was not the monster they made him out to be. One writer did not mince words about Jimmy's father, the longtime Democrat leader of the Massachusetts Senate, who refused to cooperate with federal authorities. So here we have, this isn't just Biden, Democrat supporters. We have the brother of the serial killer mafia enforcer that is mentioned here, being a leader in the Massachusetts Senate and refusing to cooperate with authorities. Right? The Ted Kaczynski brother decided it was more important that his brother be captured and not kill anymore than stay loyal to him. Ted Kaczynski's own brother turned him in, right? Bill Bulger, Whitey's brother, in the face of a god-awful amount of horror, has made a different choice. So there's another connection. And this, I want to point something else out too. It says current at the top of that, right? That's current at the time that this was published. So it wasn't, yeah, they did things in the past that were, they were associated at the time of publication of this report. And if need be, we can go through and maybe read a little bit about Bulger in another show, but I think right now it's just enough to know. Right? That's pretty. Can you imagine in your community, just what city you live in, doesn't matter where it is, all right? Imagine for a minute if the people of your city found out that your city's prosecutor or your county prosecutor was hanging out with mobsters, doing business with the CCP, and had a long-running history of juggling shell companies that so they don't actually do anything, and they get a lot of money without a lot of explanation as to what they're getting paid for. Put people in charge that don't have any qualifications because they're not actually in charge of anything. They're just in positions that get paid a lot. And oddly enough, it seems to be affecting the way that he runs his office. Just your local prosecutor, right? Imagine if it was your mayor, your local mayor. Oh yeah, the mayor has mafia connections, right? What kind of scandal would that be? Because where I grew up, we had a massive scandal that resulted in a hearing that lasted more than a year, and the community is this was in 1991, 92, kind of was pretty much concluded by 93, but it's now 2024 or 2025, and the community I grew up in, there's still division in that community over that controversy, and it was over whether or not a police officer fell asleep on the job, like on shift, in his car in a quiet area of town in a population at the time, I think, 10,000 community, and whether or not it was illegal for him as a DEA officer to use drugs while investigating a drug ring that he busted. That was it's not, by the way. They're allowed to do that, to trick people into not thinking they're a cop. But that was the whole controversy. Took a year to have a hearing over whether or not he was wrongly fired because of that. And
wow.
Yeah, and there are people in the community that are still divided over it to this day. Like, it's really still contentious. Can you imagine if in that community they discovered that the mayor had connections with organized crime and was making decisions about the city and the city's relationship to other surrounding cities based on the connections to organized criminals and money laundering and so on. Like, and yet we have voters throughout the entire United States who decided that it was more important to support abortion for women than to stop this guy. This was not a big deal to them, but the fact that maybe possibly women might not have unlimited access to abortion up to the moment of birth on demand for no reason, that scared everybody more than this. Just saying. So the key
I mean, it kind of all right. So it kind of seems like, all right, he's been convicted. So I mean, I'm talking about Whitey Bulger,
Bulger, yeah.
right?
Oh,
Like
he died in
he's a
prison.
he's a known, yeah, but so like he's a known gangster. He's an organized criminal.
Right.
Well, these people are organized too. Just because they haven't been caught, they're not like the head of mafia gangs. Just the normal. God, the people in fucking Congress, they're organized and they're fucking criminals too. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. That's exactly why I'm going over this. People need to understand because the Burisma controversy that hit in 2019, right, and the Ukrainian leadership controversy, the Russia-Ukrainian war. This is all connected to Biden and to the Obama administration. Because remember, we went over historically. Zelensky, well, first of all, I just want to point out to everybody, Zelensky is the Pee Wee Herman of his country, okay? And I'm not kidding. That's kind of the acting career he had. If you ever go back and look up Paul Rubin's The Gong Show on YouTube. I know it's there. It's got to be there. Before he was Pee Wee Herman, he did a bunch of other weird stuff. Like, he was just a weird guy, right? And that happens a lot with people who are highly creative and are able to make people laugh and be entertaining. People who can do that are usually a little bit weird in comparison to other people. It's why they titillate the public, or why they are able to, hit your funny bone in ways that it just doesn't normally go off and stuff like that, right? Zelensky was like that before he became the leader of Ukraine, right? And remember, as we've mentioned this in previous episodes discussing this, in the timeline of events, you had that happen where the United States, using methods that the CIA has used in other countries to install leaders in other countries because of U.S. interests, and we are going to get into that more. Because there's a lot of documented history on that, and it's actually probably the main underlying reason. Everybody likes to blame Israel, and I'm not saying that Israel is innocent, because they're not, but our CIA has done some things that in other countries and in the Middle East that are the core reason behind every act of terrorism that we have ever faced from the Middle East in the United States. Like, when I say we are the Batman, we create our own enemies by trying to be the world police. I'm not kidding. Like, actually, we're worse, because at least Batman had good intentions. He intended to protect the public. He intended to prevent other people from experiencing what he experienced, and most of what my government has done is about money. It's not about protecting people. It's not about being the good guys. It's not even about spreading freedom and democracy as we are told. So yeah, it's quite a different story there. If there was a dysfunctional Batman that he pretended to be the good guy, but actually he was just trying to make himself richer and invested in everything that he protected and economically, and sold weapons to the bad guys and then busted them for having them and stuff like that. Like, that would be Uncle Sam. So Uncle Batman.
Yeah.
Right? And this is part of that. So here we are. What we're talking about now, we're looking into, like, when you pull back the curtain and you see the man behind the curtain, and the focus is on how he's moving all the switches and levers and pushing buttons and stuff, and the big screen has the big head that scares everybody. Nobody notices the shit all over the floor. Nobody notices the debris, right? Dirty needles and junk food wrappers and little bits of bodily fluids because he didn't have time to go to the bathroom. That's what we're reading about right now. That is that aspect of the man behind the curtain of the Biden family, and it's gross, right? And I want to remind everybody that after that installation of Zelensky, the U.S. had to put down a rebellion because Zelensky wasn't universally popular like everybody likes to make him out to be. Ukraine isn't something that existed organically as a nation. It was part of Russia at one point. It was part of the Soviet Union at one point, and it wasn't referred to as Ukraine. It was referred to as the Ukraine, which was a direction, right? Not a name. And so there were Russian nationals, people who were of Russian descent in Ukraine, in Crimea, who did not want to be led by Zelensky. And as we read in a previous show and listened to in a previous show, Obama hired holy warriors. Obama's CIA hired holy warriors that came out of our proxy war against Russia and Afghanistan, where we had our holy warriors and they had their holy warriors. And out of our holy warriors came Al-Qaeda and a bunch of mercenaries that were hired to slaughter the objecting Russian nationals in Crimea. So you have, in my opinion, a genocide committed at that point in time. So the United States has done everything it could to preserve having this guy in charge. And that started during the Obama administration at about the same time, coincidentally, at about the same time that Joe Biden and his family began shaking down a company in Ukraine for money, peddling influence to get that money. Basically mafia shit, right? So here we have what we're talking about all this time, sort of culminating in Biden's involvement, Biden family's involvement with the CCP, the Biden family's involvement with Burisma, the Biden family's involvement with American mobsters, the Biden family's involvement with media fixers, attorneys that are known for strong-arming rather than worrying about whether they're doing the right thing. So now we're looking into the key confidants. The preeminent foot soldiers of the Biden political syndicate served on the inside of the government. So everybody that we've talked about so far were not government officials. Now we're going to be discussing some people who were part of the government. The day-to-day operations of the American executive branch are being handled by these extremely guarded operators, all of whom have stuck with Joe Biden through his multiple plagiarism scandals. Remember, when he ran, he didn't just run for president this time. He ran for president a bunch of times, and at one point he had to drop out of the race because he was caught plagiarizing a speech. So, he embarrassed himself multiple times. He is a wild dipshit. Campaign finance violations in the aughts, and his basement campaign of 2020. The chairman of that campaign was Steve Ricchetti, a fixture in influential circles on the left since the early days of the Clinton White House, where he was hip-to-hip with John Podesta. Reminder, by the way, when you hear people talking about Pizzagate is real, one of the people that they are talking about is John Podesta. The Podesta brothers were the ones whose artwork from their apartment was publicized during the Pizzagate controversy, where they had... there's a lot of it that was just weird, but the thing that I think stood out to most people was the painting of children that had been lined up to be spanked, who had expressions of upset on their faces, and if I remember right, there was like some evidence that they had already been spanked, like they had their hands over their butts or their butts were red or some stuff like that. It was really a disturbing kind of image, and it was disturbing in a way that you couldn't be like, this should be illegal, because it wasn't directly like child porn. It was just one of those images that gives you the ick. Like, why would you want to see that?
Yeah.
That kind of the ick. I'd actually rather have images of scary monsters up on the walls of my house than that. And let's see, Death to Zionism
it's
asks
like
if I've
worse
been...
than gore.
Yeah, if I've been watching Ryan Dawson. I saw you shared some of his tweets. I have in the past watched something that Ryan Dawson did, and I think he's the guy that had thought that men just needed to step up and corrected himself, if I remember right. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's the name I associate with that. But yeah, I don't necessarily watch a lot of people's, especially on like I can't I still can't watch live features or listen to live features on Twitter. They keep trying to fix it, and they keep telling me it's fixed, and I keep having the same type of error message scenario happen, and now it's gone from, it doesn't give me the error message anymore. I can enter the live stream, the whatever they call it, on X, but no sound will play. And it's across multiple devices, so and I tried making a burner account, and I can do it on all those devices with that account, so it is specific to my account. So yeah, it's a really weird situation, and I'm still in communication with them, and it's not for lack of trying. Somebody in X, in their they're not support basically told me to fuck off, but and that was after I pointed out, I'm paying for this service and you're not providing it. They're like, well, we can't do anything for you. But the appeals, the system you go through to appeal a suspension from a live feature, I'm basically using that and communicating with those people on the problem. So I don't know what'll happen, but I'm relatively certain that someone from X's old trust and safety team either put some sort of blacklist on my account before they left, or is still involved in everyday operations at X and is interfering, like actively interfering. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a live stream type thing, I haven't heard it, because I don't want to bother switching back and forth between accounts to listen to that stuff. But just pointing out. So yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I've got the right guy. But if I have that wrong, let me know. So, but in the meantime, and while I'm at it, I better double check and make sure we don't have any. I haven't got the super chows open, so I'm going to take a look at that really quick as well, just because we may have stuff that people have brought up relevant to what we've been talking about. Nope. We have one from Meredith G for $5 that says, HBR Talk 337, honey for the badgers. Thanks for the thought-provoking discussion. So that is where we are so far. And yes, I did see about the money. I think we actually talked about the guy that was arrested for pre-crime. Florida had a it wasn't just one guy. There was a whole bunch of shit going on, and I'll end up talking about that at some point as well. It's been remedied, but essentially the police developed an algorithm, so it really was like Minority Report. Instead of psychics, they were using a computer, but they developed an algorithm that, based on some set of factors they put in it, told them people that it thought was likely to commit crimes. And then they harassed those people over things that were not illegal. And they've since been busted. There was a lawsuit, and they've been forced to stop doing that. And I believe some of the victims actually received some much deserved compensation, because doing that kind of interferes with your jobs and everything. But when law enforcement gets out of control, when they think they are above the law, that is what happens. And it is more likely to affect men than women, especially given that law enforcement is trained to think that men are more likely to perpetrate than women. And men are more likely to be pressured to plea bargain and accept wrongful conviction and wrongful sentences that are harsher than they should be receiving, and so on, in circumstances if they're either innocent or if they're guilty, but maybe not of something as bad as what the prosecutor wanted to go after them for. Whereas women are more likely to be able to throw somebody under the bus, right, or get lenience, say, I'm a mom, you shouldn't take me away from my children. You know, if a man says, I'm a dad, you shouldn't take me away from my children, judges are more likely to sentence him to a longer sentence. Oh no, you're
longer.
Yeah, you're going to be a bad influence. We don't want you around those children. You are going to jail, right? But not the mom. Even though she's a more direct influence according to most social beliefs and standards, right? So what we're reading about here, all of this influence peddling, all of this, the top cops in the country feeling above the law, engaging in money laundering and engaging in manipulation of other countries, using their position in the federal government to act as international shakedown artists. Like that, where in Florida you had that Minority Report situation, which eventually a stop was put to it. This is a part of the reason why people are getting killed all over the world. Right? This is actually interference in U.S. foreign relations and in the operations in foreign countries that affect ordinary citizens. And it doesn't just affect them economically. So, but as we get back to this, so we're talking here about individuals who were actually in government, who were part of this, part of what the Biden family was doing, right? So Ricchetti, and we got into the whole Podesta thing. That's what sort of the sidetrack was. But Ricchetti relinquished his new position in the Biden administration, where he secured employment for 3 of his children, so nepotism, under the watchful eye of Ron Klain, the former chief of staff at the White House. The chief strategist for the aforementioned campaign was Mike Donnellan, who has been described as Joe's conscience. I didn't know that he had a conscience.
Right?
Yeah, that's a bit of a revelation there, I guess. Mike's brother Tom was Obama's national security advisor. So, Joe Biden's conscience's brother was Obama's national security advisor. Tom's wife, Catherine Russell, was the longtime chief of staff to Jill and was Joe's director of the White House Personnel Office for the first year of his presidency. Russell became the executive director of UNICEF in 2022. However, Ted Kaufman is in a league of his own, having served on Joe's first Senate campaign in the 70s. And it was both a successor in the Senate, chairman of the Biden Foundation. So we kind of went over this before a little bit. What I want to go into in regard to this is you can sort of see there are, if you had to put one of those conspiracy webs up with strings and papers and everything, you would see a lot of strings going back and forth between the people who were mentioned in Pizzagate, the people who were mentioned in, oh god, I can't think of the controversy that, with the Rose law firm and the missing paperwork that Hillary Clinton was involved in, but those people and the Clinton family, right? The Obamas and the Biden family. It's kind of you have a mafia connection with the Biden family. You have the Biden family being their own little mafia, and then you have them being part of a Democrat political mafia. And I can't argue with this. Death to Zionism, Feminism, and the Thin Blue Line says you see a lot of strings attached to Israel. That is not false. Right? It's unfortunately one of those things that I would have been shocked by, like, really. It really would have rocked my world to learn this information 10 years ago. At least that part of it. A lot of the rest of this, like, I knew Joe Biden was a scumbag when I was in school, but that's a different story. Like, I saw him, you just had to watch him talk. The guy was an idiot, and he's never been better than he is now. Everybody always acts like, oh, he's deteriorated. So no, he's always been a moron. He's always been a pathological liar who tells obvious lies that just a slight bit of fact-checking could eliminate, and then continues to tell them after that happens. Like, he's always been like this. It's just that now, the only real change that has happened is that some of the filters that he tried to use to pretend to be better than he was have loosened up and fallen off, or become transparent, so he's not hiding it as well anymore. So now we get into the core of the crimes, and this is where we'll start to hear a little bit more about things that actually have been, there are crimes that the Trump administration was targeted for prosecution for, that the Biden administration was guilty of. And we're going to see that here. Several small volumes have been written about the Biden laptop and the scandals therein, and rightfully so. However, most of those volumes have been primarily dedicated to the aforementioned buckets number 1 and number 2, along with family's moral depravity, while paying special attention to Hunter and Hallie. And yeah, the salacious stuff is, to, I think, a lot of people, titillating. Which, to me, most of the depravity and stuff, it's bad. It's stuff that you're like, gosh, that's awful, But it pales in comparison to the international manipulation. And those crimes affect a lot more people. And I do have compassion for the impact, that people felt from the crimes of depravity and the titillating stuff, basically, right? But it's when you hear about a tidal wave coming to hit the coast, and you hear about one person's house that's on fire, the answer is, yeah, the house is gone. Even if you put the fire out, the tidal wave is still going to hit it. Let's evacuate the coast and not focus on the burning house. And that's kind of the way I feel about the Biden crimes. So, what these exposés omitted were the hundreds of documented crimes, both felonies and misdemeanors, and the necessary information to thoroughly expose and prosecute them. The Biden's nepotism, though egregious, was not easily actionable under U.S. law. It was unethical. It's the kind of thing that the voters should have had their attention drawn to. It's something that basically, when you went to the polls, you should have been well aware that you were choosing between somebody who criticized Trump for having his family involved in his organization and having the support of his family, but then actually gave government jobs to members of his family that were not qualified to fill them, didn't have the education, didn't have the experience, and also to their handlers, to friends that had supported him with the same circumstances, no qualifications, no education, couldn't do the jobs, just were given positions or made up positions for them, and then on top of that, used those positions for influence peddling, right? And your choice is between those two. Either you take somebody whose family has all worked together to understand everything that they're trying to do for the country, and to actually be able to do those jobs that they're put into, or somebody who is just engaging in nepotism without the qualifications being in place, and then pointing the finger in order to cover for their own wrongdoing, basically. So that was like the minor thing. These omissions have served as a classic limited hangout for the family, who benefited from the milquetoast research put forward by most of the press. Nearly everyone who has written about these matters has buried the lead by missing, like ships passing in the dead of the night, a statute that was written with Hunter and his ilk in mind: the Foreign Agents Registration Act. FARA requires those acting as an agent for a foreign principal to register with the Department of Justice. So, if McDonald's was a foreign company instead of a U.S. company, and it was all over Europe, and they decided to open a McDonald's in Florida, even though it's just a regular business, the minute representatives from McDonald's start having any involvement with government officials, lobbying for anything, talking to government officials about economic decisions, anything where they're meeting with them on an official capacity or on any kind of government business, they got to register with the DOJ. Like, they can have as much business as they want here from a foreign country. But now, of course, that's not the case with actual McDonald's, but it's a company that everybody knows, right? There are numerous companies that do business in the United States that don't do anything with the government, that don't have anybody registered because they're not really, they pay their tariffs, they deal with the same thing that you have to deal with when you bring things in and out of the United States, and they don't go into D.C. and talk to congressmen about what laws should be passed or whatever. But bigger companies, automotive companies would be probably an example. There are probably people working in various automotive companies that do business in the United States that have actually gone in and lobbied in regard to tariffs that they face. And those lobbyists do have to do have to register, right? So that's one aspect. Anybody that works in government has to, if they're going to speak to a foreign government, or if they operate on behalf of a foreign government within the United States, they have to register as a foreign agent, because they're actually representing foreign interests. FARA does not prevent any otherwise legal relationship or transaction between the parties. It merely requires the agent to register and declare for which foreign principal he is acting as an agent. So that way the DOJ knows if something untoward is going on, they know who to go find and investigate. Because the bar to comply with FARA is so low, the penalties for violating the statute are relatively steep, including fines and up to 5 years in prison. Hunter and his business partners flagrantly violated this law for nearly a decade. Do not take Marco Polo's word for it. The exhibits in this section will clearly illustrate the aforementioned 5 W's. Even with FARA's low bar of mere disclosure, like you literally just have to inform the government, I am operating in the United States as a foreign agent for Buick. When I go talk to government officials, I am speaking for Buick. Like that's it. You don't have to do anything else. So it's easier than paying your taxes as a U.S. citizen. It is actually more trouble for a person who works a minimum wage job to fill out their tax form and turn that in. It takes more effort to do that than it does to comply with this. And they didn't comply. The DOJ, OIG, and the Obama Biden regime released a report detailing how the DOJ lacked a comprehensive FARA enforcement strategy. The OIG explicitly stated that many FBI agents do not even understand the law and are frustrated with a lack of guidance and overall communication between the FBI and the National Security Division and the DOJ. Nevertheless, this lack of a comprehensive FARA enforcement strategy did not stop the DOJ from using this exact law to prosecute Paul Manafort. In a sickeningly ironic twist, Joe's feds used FARA to investigate Rudy Giuliani's quest to expose Biden's crimes in Ukraine. So, yeah, here we have the receipts. I don't know if I can. It doesn't look like I can make this bigger, but this is from page 75 of BidenReport.com. So if you go to BidenReport.com and look at this page, I don't know if it lets me zoom in or not. Nope, it zoomed me back out. That's great. Okay. Well, it says zoom in, and it probably doesn't show on your screen. That's annoying. But there's the case. So, yeah, they didn't hold Hunter accountable for what he has done, but the people who investigated him absolutely were in trouble. Although repeatedly misattributed to Saul Alinsky, Joe's apparatchiks. Apparatchiks? I don't know. This is not a word. Yeah, I'm not familiar with it. In the FBI, we're actually following Hunter's modus operandi, taken from Joseph. Oh God, Joseph Goebbels. Accuse others of what you are, in fact, guilty of doing or covering up. I'm sure he didn't learn that from studying the guy. I doubt that he is that educated. The Bidens have blamed their laptop debacle on the Russians, on Giuliani, and on other actors supposedly working at the behest of foreign principals for which they have no evidence. At the very same time, and it's been since debunked. Every claim they've made about it has been since debunked. The facts, the information on the laptop was verified. It was not fake. None of it was invented or made someplace else. It's been proved that A, that was his laptop, and B, those things were on it. Everything was real. So, yeah, all those lies they told, the evidence actually came out later anyway. But yeah. So we have... Yes, there's a beeping noise mocking moniker. I have two potential headsets to use for this. One of them beeps and the other one sounds like I'm in a tin can. And we're looking into getting me a new headset. The one that Allison is looking at is a little outside my budget. So it's actually a lot outside my budget right now. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, let's see. So, at the very same time, the Biden clan and their partners were actually unregistered agents for a plethora of foreign principals. The irony was not lost on Sherwin after he read an article about Obama's chief of staff. I wonder why we stress about this FARA so much. And there you go. Was reading an article about how Daley was never a registered lobbyist, although he directed SBC and JP Morgan's lobbying efforts. Also, the article noted he was registered as a foreign lobbyist under FARA at one point, 1979, when he was at Mayor Brown. Again, you are different at this point in time, but sometimes I wonder why we stress about this so much. So, there you go. Now, in 2019, the Bidens and those in their orbit began to worry as their financial statements and wire transfers were revealed. During the course of writing the report, a whistleblower, after realizing purposeful delay from the DOJ was afoot, approached Marco Polo with a copy of a grand jury subpoena. This would, I think, be the subpoena right here. And an external referral in the finance compliance industry parlance, issued by the aforementioned U.S. Attorney for the District of Delaware, David Weiss. The whistleblower was a party to the subpoena, which sought Hunter and his partner's financial transactions and other business records. The cover letter of the subpoena, which was signed by Assistant U.S. Attorney Jamie McCall, bore the name of Leslie Wolf, who, because of her husband's employment at Penn, should have recused herself. And they give the law as to why. So here, the Biden's financial records are getting looked into, right? And Wolf issued the wide-ranging subpoena seeking records from Joe's son and brother Jimmy. 15 companies, mostly shells, used for money laundering were included on the document. 15. Predictably, most of the companies listed below will be on exhibits in this report. The order demanded all transfers emanating to and from the specific account at the Bank of China, presumably alluding to foreign bank account registration violations that Hunter and his partners committed. In fact, the DOJ used this exact statute to indict Paul Manafort 2 years earlier. So again, someone in the Trump camp was indicted for things that the Biden family actually did. And this is something that the opponents just crowed over, absolutely crowed over this indictment. So with this subpoena, we have definitive proof of miscarriage of justice, because nothing ever happened with the Biden family with regard to this. And the lack of accountability could be explained in part by the makeup of and presumed biases of law enforcement team and their associates. But you have to understand, this still is quite a lot for them to do nothing, right? Their biases are one thing. I suspect personally that there's more to it than that. So you think about how Joe Biden operates. I want to remind you of the prosecutor situation with Burisma. The controversy over Biden's actions in Ukraine had to do with $1 billion in foreign aid that the Obama administration was considering providing in Ukraine, providing to Ukraine, right? And Joe Biden basically went in and said, you can't have the foreign aid that your country desperately needs, according to what we've been told. This money's not coming to you, and we're going to basically screw you over on it if you don't get rid of the prosecutor that's investigating my son. And that was what was happening. There was a prosecutor. Biden claims he was corrupt, but has not actually ever demonstrated any corruption taking place there. So, he demanded that this prosecutor be fired. The investigation ended. And, yeah. So it wasn't just an individual failing to register properly, like in the case of Manafort being accused of failing to register properly for work that he was doing that was not improper work. This was a situation where Biden has given his son a pass on not registering as a foreign agent for a company that, from the look of it, was being used to launder money that was going to the Biden family as part of their shakedown operation, their foreign shakedown operation. And as you can see here, all these people that knew about it and did nothing. If Biden had the audacity to not just threaten a whole nation, you're not getting your foreign aid if you don't stop investigating my son, and did it in public and bragged about it, what's he doing to the little people behind the scenes?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We just looked at all the fixers. We just looked at the fact that he has mob connections. We just looked at the fact that his family is a mob, and that there is a political mob within the Democrat Party in which he is included. And I know Marco Polo is being meticulously non-judgmental, where they're not going to make any allegations they can't prove, right? But I don't believe for a minute that it was just bias, that these people were loyal to the Biden family because they believed in all this stuff. I am really certain, personally, that there was probably stuff going on in the background. You better not enforce that law. You have no idea what we can do to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now we're getting into suspicious activity reports. This is financial stuff. And this wasn't, some minor, they had money that was handled in a way that wasn't explainable. There's more to it than that. Marco Polo was also provided with 2 SARs, which have been submitted to the Department of Treasury as a supplement to J.P. Morgan Chase's response to the aforementioned subpoena. Right. The SARS revealed the international business networks and human trafficking rings that Hunter and Associates facilitated and patronized. And we're not going to... I'm going to be really careful dealing with the human trafficking stuff because, like I said, I don't want to run into pictures that, first of all, I don't want to see, and second of all, they don't belong on YouTube and any of these other platforms. So I'm going to stick with the walls of text here for a little bit, guys. Sorry. So the first one, J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, which, just to remind you, Chase Bank is the one that debanked the leader of the Proud Boys for his political views. And he's not the only one. There's been several other people that Chase has debanked for being too right-wing or being viewed as part of organizations that say the Anti-Defamation League or the SPLC don't like. Right? So they basically said, well, we're not going to allow you to bank with us, and we're going to blacklist you. So a lot of people end up in that circumstance. You get debanked, and then you go to another bank, and they're like, well, no, J.P. Morgan won't do business with you. We won't do business with you either. But you go to maybe a small town bank that isn't necessarily all over the country. You might be able to do business there. The difference is you might not have as much online access to your account. You wouldn't necessarily be able to go to an ATM in another community and get your money out for free. Your fees might be a little higher. Or, shoot, I can't think of the other thing that's not a bank.
Credit union.
Credit union, yeah. You might have to go with a credit union. And most credit unions are also, like, local. You get a little more service with a credit union sometimes than with a local small bank. But you do end up with a very limited range of function from your bank in comparison to the big international banks. And that's basically what they're trying to do to you, is limit your movement and your access to your funds and stuff. Basically make it inconvenient for you to move around and do the things that you've been doing. So, Chase Bank, even Chase Bank, the defunder, not defunder, but debanker of patriots and conservatives, couldn't stomach the shit that the Biden family was doing. Right. So here we have this list of transactions that they reported involving current, former, and non-customers of the bank. And on this list, you have some of the individuals that we mentioned before, some of the companies, some of the shell companies we mentioned before, and here we have, see if it doesn't let me select it, okay. Burisma Holdings Limited. Right. Then we have a company in Shanghai. Right. So, and this is not small either. This is wires between 2014 and 2019, so 5 years of transactions, 93 transactions in 5 years, totaling over almost 2.5 million. Really, it's over 2 million. After receipt of an external referral, J.P. Morgan conducted a review. Focal subjects, again, people that we have discussed before, shell companies we mentioned before. Now, no counterparties are listed, because nobody filed complaints, necessarily, with the exception of Thornsdale. But then we have... It's driving me nuts. I'm sorry. It goes up into the little area that allows me to turn pages and stuff. It's not. I don't think it's gonna let me zoom in any further. I don't know. Aha! It is letting me zoom in. Good. All right. Internal records reveal Robert is a former J.P. Morgan customer. Research revealed he is an American lawyer, PEP, as he is the second son of a former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden. Negative media was found on Robert for alleged business conflicts. Worked for a U.S.-based company which received monthly transfers exceeding $166,000 per month from Burisma. So again, we have the mention of Burisma, and there is a news article here. Biden questioned after forcing out Ukrainian official for investigating his son. International records revealed Devon was a former customer also. Devon Archer. Right. According to the SDNY press release, Devon and two other defendants were convicted of orchestrating a scheme to defraud investors and a Native American tribal entity of tens of thousands of dollars. Federal judge overturned the conviction. Third-party web presence revealed Owasco is a law firm associated with Robert. However, very little information is found. But you have all of these names together end up being involved with Rosemont Seneca, both Rosemont Seneca companies. These are investment companies. There are allegations that Robert received funds from Chinese government that coincided with former vice president negotiating issues with China. So, yeah, again, you have all of these little things. They're not really little, but all of these were suspect enough that the bank reported them as suspicious activity. So, just a bit to understand about the whole suspicious activity report thing. There's a bit of history there too. This goes back to 9/11, and it used to be a lot easier to transfer money electronically, both with regard to your banks and with regard to things like buying a gift card from a local store. Say you go into your local pharmacy or grocery store and you want to get a gift visa for a friend. There are limits that exist now on how much you can actually give on a visa, on a gift visa, or buying even just a card for that store. Like you go into CVS or Walmart or Walgreens or any of those stores and say, I'm going to get a gift card to this store and send it to my cousin for his birthday. There's a hard limit as to how much you can put on that card, right? And the same thing with, there's a type of card called a green dot card that is an electronic money transfer card. You load the card with an amount of money, and it is immediately transferable to a bank account. And there's a couple of different things that contributed to the law being passed. That you have limits on how much you can put on a card and how many cards you can buy in a day. If somebody tries to buy more, or even if somebody comes in, like you're a cashier at CVS, somebody comes in and says, "What's the maximum I can put on a gift visa to send to somebody?" That alone can generate a report. You can be expected to report that because the individual might be attempting to engage in some money laundering, right? And part of that was because gift cards factored into how the terrorists that you have to use your SSN now to use the green dot card, but you didn't always. Death to Zionism, you didn't always. And one of the things that would happen is for instance, you might, if you were a little old lady, you might get an email. You have won a brand new Mercedes. All you have to do is pay the taxes. The Mercedes has a total value of, this many thousands of dollars, and your tax bill comes out to this few thousands of dollars. So we need you to put the money on a green dot card and then give the information on the green dot card to this entity, this tax entity, and once you have paid the total, you can make small payments, but once you've paid the total, you get the car, right? You get this email. Most people are like, yeah, bullshit. That's obviously a scam. But there were a lot of boomers that fell for this. And there were people from the generation that parented the boomers that were already starting to get senile when they got those emails, and they fell for it. And so there were people that lost a few $1,000s here and there to these green dot card scams. And they would actually send you to CVS to get the card too. I worked for CVS for a while, and I literally had people come in at least 2 or 3 times a week with trying to pay for these scams. It's similar to, there's a whole bunch of scams that use that card. The FBI virus, for instance, where you get malware on your computer and you suddenly get this error message that somebody in your home has pirated software, and you have to pay this amount of money, or they're gonna get arrested, and you have to buy this card and send it in, and so on. And I actually have known techies that fell for that and sent money, so it's not just boomers, and it's not just boomers' parents. Like I knew at least one millennial techie that fell for that. The FBI scam, that is because he had actually pirated some software. So he thought that he actually had gotten caught. But yeah, I actually prevented multiple times people falling for this kind of scam, right? Because they'd come in, they'd try to buy a green dot card, and they'd start talking about, I won a car. And I'm like, oh God, no, honey, you did not win a car. You are being scammed. Have you already sent money? Here's the number for the state attorney general's office. You really need to work with them to catch these people. And I don't know if you're going to get your money back, but don't give them any more, And and a lot of times it was women. Not always, but a lot of times. And so this kind of thing, there were some laws that were passed right after 9/11, but Obama ramped them up big time. So there were a bunch of new regulations that came out during the Obama administration in regard to electronic transfers. And the excuse that was used, was this combination of funding of illicit activities, drug deals, terrorist cells, and so on, and then also people getting taken for a ride, right? And so now a lot of things have to be reported that weren't reported before. But it's kind of funny because, again, Joe Biden was vice president during Obama's tenure. And yet, here we have all these suspicious activity reports. And you have Robert Biden's investment company in China pooling money largely from state-owned venture capital to buy or invest in a wide range of U.S. and China industries. Then you have Thorndale signers, basically, Thorndale initiating the SAR. You have Devon Archer associated with several SARs, several types of suspicious activities. You have, again, Burisma mentioned. And the amounts are all, anywhere from a couple $1,000s to $100,000, $600,000, right? $300,000, $200,000. And we're looking at same names, same people, same companies, right? Burisma, again, in China. So it might be, we're hearing about, did Joe Biden actually protect his son just from being wrongly prosecuted for violating a gun law that his particular violation wasn't the type they were targeting when they passed that law? Or was it about possibly the variety of suspicious activities with regard to banking and these shell companies and the Biden family's shakedown, money laundering, and influence peddling operations? So I know I've thrown a lot of stuff at you guys all at once here. Okay, we're getting back into the naughty pictures, so we won't go to the next page. Stop! Okay, won't go to the next page until I examine it. It's just a bikini. At least that wasn't a... she didn't look like a hooker, but I want to make sure I'm not going to get into images that YouTube's going to shut our channel down for having them up. Right, bikini pictures, I don't think they'll give us a rough time about that, but I don't know if there are... If I turn the page after that, there's not going to be somebody naked there. Like, I don't want to mess with that right now. And I haven't actually examined that far. I did get a little bit hung up in reading these details when I was looking this over before. So what I'm seeing here... this is the tip of the iceberg, by the way, that we're looking at. There's a lot more for us to go over, and we're not gonna, we're in page 82 of the report. The report's 600 pages long. We probably got, maybe 2 more shows on this where I'm going to go over some specific things. And then I'm going back to the Ukraine war, and from there I'm actually gonna go back in time. And this, believe it or not, will all lead back to the suffrage issue. Because it's all about war and conscription. Right? But as you can see, the connections between Joe Biden and his family and the political mafia in Washington and the foreign activities, the negotiations, the manipulations, the involvement that we have in the war in Ukraine, everything, you can see that everything is financial. Everything is about either influence peddling or laundering money through investments, right, in companies that then are operating in these foreign countries. So foreign aid gets sent to this country. It gets used to fund to pay for services from these companies, and then people in Washington are benefiting either directly or through their family members from them being employed by these companies. All right, and so you have to look at what's going on with the Ukraine war, what's going on with various like fuel companies, various weapons companies, right? Various outfits that contribute to the war effort and contribute to the materials used in war. And then who is employed by those companies, by those outfits, how that money going to the individuals employed finds its way back to the politicians that are voting for that foreign aid. And knowing these networks, knowing that our president for the last 4 years has been involved in this and has been getting these kind of kickbacks, and has been getting these kind of has been involved in these kind of maneuverings for not just the last 4 years, but for 40, 50 years. Like, you have to look back at that. Well, no wonder he was pardoned for the last 10 years, right? No wonder he was... Maybe some of the things that he has done, the statute of limitations is longer than that. If you go back more than 10 years to try to prosecute for something, it's not going to work because it's too long ago. But there's quite a bit that Biden himself has been involved in, and that his friends in Washington have been involved in. That pardoning Hunter Biden and preventing Hunter Biden and his associates from being prosecuted for these financial crimes and these foreign activities that they were involved in would cover for and protect. So before we get into anything else next week, we are going to be looking, instead of this specific report, I have a link from the report here. This is actually an archive. It is from the Financial Times, and it is on Hunter Biden's web of interests. So we will go through and look at the different companies and their locations and everything. So you can sort of see what that is. That is what we will start with next week. Okay, so Dawson isn't who I thought he was. Death to Zionism. The name is familiar, and I know that he has actually... is he the guy that tweeted about having the Epstein list? Because I think that if he's not the guy that said, I was wrong about saying that men should step up and do better, then he is the guy who... I'm pretty sure he's the guy who said, I analyzed the available information and I have ascertained the Epstein list. And he's actually somebody I want to talk to. I think other media should be talking to him, bigger than us. But I don't know if they have. But he's definitely somebody that I do want to talk to. So we do have an after show, and we do have an after show article. I'm not sure I'm allowed to tell you the title on YouTube. Let me, I can actually open the article. We will be talking about a topic. Let me actually go find the article here. Why is Discord suddenly being a dick? Stop it, Discord. For fuck's sake. Really? Okay, maybe I already have this open. I do. Alright. So, it is because, my Wi-Fi went down for a second. That's why. I hope you guys could hear me the whole time. That's kind of weird, but it looks like my Wi-Fi died and came back from the dead. But here is the topic we are going to be going over in the after show. The after show is exclusive to Rumble, because Rumble will let us talk about this stuff. Oh good, Mocking Moniker says I was audible. I was audible the whole time. But let's see here. So this is what we're going to be talking about, and it is a men's issue in that the things that we're not allowed to say happened, we're also not allowed to say that they were more prevalent among men and than they were among women. So we're going to look at what this director has highlighted, what he's blowing the whistle on, and we'll see, what we can ascertain about this particular men's issue. because the other thing is I think a lot of compliance that sort of was imposed on the public against the will of, against people's better judgment, really. Like that was imposed at the behest of women and their safety net addiction. So when we go over this, the things that we're going to be highlighting, we're going to be highlighting quite a bit of imposition, really, that's been done to men, and it's not just imposition for good reasons. It's wrongful imposition. It's imposition that resulted in harm and damage, and it's imposition that men need to understand that if you don't want to face this type of imposition in the future, gotta stop accommodating women's safety net addiction. So with that, now you guys know what the after show is going to be, and where it's going to be. If you want to be able to participate in our after shows, go to feedthebadger.com. I didn't actually do our little pre-show spiel today, so we'll do it at the end of the show. Go to feedthebadger.com. Feedthebadger.com, in this age of censorship and throttling, shadow banning, and pressure campaigns against people who talk about issues that the establishment doesn't like. Feedthebadger.com is really the most stable way to help us out. And it also is your line of access to becoming a member of our Discord, to becoming one of our patrons, and to gaining access to the patron-only after shows. So if you want to do that, if you can't find it by typing in feedthebadger.com, the other way to find us is honeybadgerbrigade.com, where you may wake up one morning and discover that all of our social media is gone. We may be off YouTube. We can get booted off of just about anything, right? And if you want to find out where we still are, you go to honeybadgerbrigade.com, and our publication lists off every show. We have a variety of interesting articles, and we also have a link to feedthebadger.com in the drop-down menu at the top of the page. So that's our two places to go to find us. So thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to my two co-hosts. There wasn't so much to comment on, I think, in this as there was to listen to, but there's quite a bit of minutia to this I guess it's a controversy. There's a lot of people that still are trying to argue that it's a nothing burger. There's a lot of people that are trying to argue that it's not real. But yeah, there's a lot of minutia to this controversy, and people can sort of get a little brain dead about it. I mean, it can make you shut right off listening to all these financial descriptions of actions, where it's not, that this person went over and stabbed this person in another country. It's this person went over and engaged in this illicit transaction, financial transaction, this suspect financial transaction. And when you add them all up, you see a pattern of behavior that is similar to, or is pretty much normal in mafia type operations, right? So it's a different set of information. And again, if you did stuff like this, I mean, you don't even have to do something this big to get into trouble. All you have to do is try to spend too much on a gift card for your grandma, right? Or buy gift cards for too many of your family members at once, and all of a sudden you're suspect. But the Biden family can get away with shell companies and money laundering and influence peddling and contributing to a war that didn't need to happen, and using their influence peddling and their shell companies and their money laundering to cover for it. So, thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next Thursday.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.